Hey everyone, it's Andrea from the Town of Wytheville Department of Museums, and I'm here with you today for another virtual learning experience. And I'm really excited about this one today. I'm going to start by asking you about what holiday we have coming up in just a couple of weeks here. So think about it for a minute. What holiday is coming up? We might celebrate it with some candy and maybe some baby animals and maybe one kind of animal that likes to hop around. Can you think of what holiday we have coming up? Yeah, it's Easter. So we are going to do a program today about dyeing Easter eggs. And I want to point out to you that we did make some worksheets for you all to follow along with at our program. You can get these on our website, www.wythevillemuseums.com, and just click on virtual learning. You can download these little charts. So you're going to see a chart with a place for you to make guesses about how our eggs are going to turn out today. And then we've got some other pages for different grades if you want to think a little more about what we're doing today, and so that you can get those on our website. So this is a program that we had all ready to come to you in your classrooms this spring, and of course now we know that we are not going to get to come to see you in your classrooms at all this spring to talk about egg dyeing. But we're hoping that you'll be able to watch this video and maybe get a chance to try this at home if you have some of the things that you need. If you don't have the things that you need already at home and you would need to go to the store to get them, we just ask you to be really careful about making that decision whether or not you need to get it or not. Our video will remain up for a while, so maybe once it's safer to go out and do things, maybe you can get your things then. So we're going to talk about egg dyeing, and I'm going to talk to you about how I made all of these dyes. But first I want to talk about Easter. And of course we know Easter is that holiday coming up. We celebrate it every spring. It's actually a holiday that came from German traditions. And I have a couple of pictures here to show you. This guy might look a little bit familiar to you. Or maybe this guy right here. He looks like the Easter Bunny, doesn't he? Well, the Easter Bunny tradition actually did come from Germany. Except in Germany, he is called the Osterhase. This is kind of a big, tricky word in German, but that's how you say it, Osterhase. That's the name of the Easter Bunny in Germany. And there's a few different legends that talk about where the Easter Bunny actually came from in Germany. But basically what kids would do is they would build little nests for their Osterhase to come and visit them, and he would leave colored eggs in their nest for him. And that tradition came to the United States, or to the colonies, in the 1700s with German settlers who settled in Pennsylvania. And then those settlers from Pennsylvania moved down into our area of Southwest Virginia. So we're talking about a tradition that people in this area have celebrated for hundreds of years. So let's talk about dyeing eggs. And so for Easter, you've probably dyed eggs before. You probably get a little kit at the store that has dyes in it that you mix with hot water and vinegar, and they make really beautiful, brilliantly colored eggs. And maybe you search for them on Easter morning. Well, we are going to talk about dyeing eggs with natural things that we find, different kinds of foods that we eat. And so I've got some different ones here. We're going to start down on this end. I made this dye here with red cabbage or purple cabbage. So that's how I made this dye here. This one here was made with coffee grounds. So I've got just a little bit of coffee grounds spilled out here. This dye here was made with turmeric, which is a powder that you get from a root vegetable. It's kind of like ginger, if you've ever seen like a ginger root that gets grated and dried. So that's what turmeric is. This dye here is made from using beets. You can see how brightly colored that is. I don't have any beets to show you today because I used them all to make the dye. Same here with the blueberries. I used blueberries to make this dye. And for this one on the end, I used onion peels. And these are just the peels off of a yellow or a brown onion. And to make these dyes, I basically chopped up a lot of the different items, like the cabbage or the beets or the blueberries, and put them into kind of a big pot like this, covered it with water, and then boiled it on the stove for 30 minutes. And if this is something that you want to do at home, I'm just going to give you a couple of pointers about this. Make sure that when you are boiling it that you're having an adult help you, for one. And also make sure that you keep your pot covered, because when you're boiling something for that long of a period of time, a lot of steam is coming up, and if you've talked about this in science at all, you know that steam is water, and it's actually coming from the water that's in the pot with your food item. And so if too much of the steam is coming up, that means there's not as much water in the pot, and then your item can get burned and it can ruin your pan. So just make sure you keep an eye on those water levels and keep those pots covered, because that'll keep the steam and the water inside. Before, or while I was boiling them, I also added something to the mixture, and I added something called a mordant. This is the word here, mordant. And this is something that is added to a dye that will help the color of the dye attach to the item that you're dyeing. And a mordant is usually made of an acid. That's another word for you to talk about, acid. An acid is something that's bitter or sour tasting, and what it does is it kind of breaks other things down. So when you add in an acid to your dye, it works as a mordant. And what it does is that you can't really see it, but it breaks down the eggshell just enough so that that color from the dye really sticks to it. So it's really important to add that mordant to your dye so that it helps it stick to the egg. The mordant that we used today for our dyes, we just used some white vinegar, and that's an acid that's going to help our dye stick. Now, I did not use a mordant with the onion peels, because when you boil the onion peels, they release something called a tannin that actually acts as a mordant in and of itself. So that one is kind of magical because you don't need to add anything extra to it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put some eggs into these different dyes here. And if you're following along on your sheet, you can look and see the different items that I use to make the dyes. And you can go ahead and make a little prediction or make a little guess about what color you think each of these eggs is going to turn out based on what I used to make the dye. So another trick for doing this is that it's really a good idea to use eggs that are warm. So if you've hard boiled your eggs, which is the kind of eggs that we want to use for dyeing, make sure that they're either still warm or that you've put them back into some warm water. That's what I did here. I just have them in a bowl of warm water, because a warm eggshell is going to take the dye a lot better than a cold or an even room temperature eggshell. So I'm going to start down here with this one. This one made with the red cabbage or the purple cabbage. It is actually the dye that takes the longest to show up, so I'm going to go ahead and put that one in first. First, I'm going to dry this egg off a little bit. That's a good idea. And I have a little dipper here that I'm going to just use to gently set the egg inside the dye. And we're just going to let that little guy sit in there for a long time. And let's go ahead and take another one. Are you having any ideas yet about what color you think all of these eggs are going to turn out? Okay, this one here is going to go into the coffee, the dye made with coffee. So drop that one right in there. Probably looks a lot like what you do at home with dyeing your eggs, doesn't it? It's a pretty similar process. Just going to dry these little guys off. Now, if I was in your classroom right now, you would all be at the back, or a few of you would be at the back room with me, and you'd each be getting a chance to dye your own eggs. That's what we had planned for. That's what's going into the turmeric. So I hope that some of you are able to do this at home and get this experience even at home. I hope you all are having a good time continuing your learning at home. It's probably something pretty new for you to be having mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, maybe even older brother or sister as a teacher. So I hope you're being really good boys and girls and listening to what they're saying, because we're hoping to get you nice and ready to start school again in the fall. We are still missing our time coming to see you, so we hope that you're enjoying these videos that we're doing for you. Alright, so I put that one into the beets, the dye from the beets. This one is going into the dye made from blueberries. Drop that one right in there. And then I've got one more here. Got the onion peels down there. It was really neat when I was making the dye from the onion peels. I'm gonna make a confession to you. I didn't really have a lot of faith that the onion peels were gonna make a good dye because they're kind of light colored here, right? And they're real papery. But as soon as I got those in the water and started boiling it, that water turned this really rich color really quickly. It was just really neat to watch it happen. So we are gonna let those eggs sit in there for a little while. If you're working on your charts, you'll have a space here to say what you think the color is going to turn out, and then once our little experiment is all done, then you'll have a chance there to write what it actually turned out and find out whether or not you were right. So I'm going to give these eggs just a minute or two. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and take the egg out of the dye that's made out of coffee grounds. So what color did you guess that this egg was going to turn out? Did you have a guess? Alright, so let's go ahead and pull that one out and see what it looks like. Oh, were you right on that? Did you guess kind of a brownish or a tan color? Let's get that dried off. It almost looks just like an egg, a brown egg that you would get from a chicken, doesn't it? It's pretty natural color there. Put that on our plate. Alright, now last we've got the dye that was made from the purple cabbage or the red cabbage. And what color did you think that this egg was going to turn out? Alright, let's see what we got. Oh, this one was a little bit tricky, wasn't it? Did you think that this one might look purple? I thought it might look purple too, but it's actually looking a really beautiful sky blue color. Get that one dried off there. What do you think about that one? That one tricked us, didn't it? Alright, so let's take a look at all the colors we've got here on our plate. So we have from the coffee, we've got a brown or a tan, a yellow from the turmeric, the sky blue color from the red or purple cabbage, this pink from the beets, this kind of nice dark blue or indigo from the blueberries, and then this kind of rusty orange color from the onion peels. Now if you look at our plate of eggs here, what color do you not see? We've got pink, orange, yellow, blue, kind of bluish purple, and brown. What color's missing? It's green, isn't it? We don't see any green eggs here. And the reason for that is because even though green is the color we see most often in nature, think about trees and leaves and grass and leaves on flowers, those are all green, right? It's actually the hardest color to get into a dye, because the green color in all those things comes from something called chlorophyll. And if you think about chlorophyll in the leaves and the grass, what happens when plants don't get enough water? They kind of turn brown, don't they? And what happens in the fall when it gets cooler outside? What happens to the leaves on the trees? They change colors, don't they? So the chlorophyll that's in all the plants that we see in nature isn't meant to stick around forever. So that makes it really hard to make it get down into a dye. So even though I tried, I wasn't successful in getting a green dye. People have tried using spinach and kale and even grass that they pick from outside or freshly cut grass. And you are welcome to try some of those things at home and see if you might have better luck than I did, but I was not able to get a green dye. Now there is a little bit of a trick that I use, and if you'll see my egg right here, this one looks a little bit green, doesn't it? So I'm going to tell you my little secret. I dipped this egg in 2 different dyes. And if I was going to make a green egg, what 2 colors would I have to use to dip to get green? Can you think about that for a minute? They're kind of right here. I actually took my blue egg that got colored from the purple cabbage, and then I did a quick dip in the dye from the turmeric, which was the yellow dye, because these 2 primary colors, blue and yellow, when you mix them together, they make green. So that was my little cheat that I did to make a green egg. So I hope you enjoyed joining us today for our egg dyeing program, and we were really excited to be able to bring that to you somehow. And if you do this at home, feel free to share pictures of any of the eggs that you dye by posting them in the comments or sending them to us. We'd love to see the different colors that you get from your dye. We hope that you all have a safe and healthy and happy Easter, if that's something that you celebrate, and a safe and happy and healthy spring. And we'll see you for our next virtual learning experience. Bye!